Hey guys, Cam here from PhoneDog.com, and for the past week or so I've been using Microsoft's latest and first non-Nokia branded Lumia device. Like all Lumias, the 535 contrasts a black front face against a brightly coloured shell. But for the first time there's no Nokia branding anywhere, and I have to say, I don't like that. Nokia's brand name was synonymous with great hardware, great build quality. Microsoft? Not so much. Not to mention its labelling and text typeface is all very plain looking. But that's not really that important. Not in the grand scheme of things. The Lumia 535 is 72.4mm wide and 8.8mm thick, similar in size to the new Moto X. The rear shell has curved corners everywhere, which would make for a great ergonomic feel if it wasn't for the super glossy finish. Instead, it's very slippery and is a huge fingerprint magnet on front and back. Despite the fact that the front glass is missing the subtle angles and curves of its higher-end siblings, the device still looks and feels incredibly well made for a phone this cheap. What's more, the interchangeable rear covers mean that you can change the look whenever you like. And then we get onto the display. It's a 5-inch LCD 540 by 960 panel. That's 220 pixels per inch, so it's not the sharpest display on the market, and you wouldn't expect it to be on a budget smartphone. Individual pixels are noticeable, but that's not the only downside to the screen. Colours and brightness are lackluster too. Everything just seems muted. Live tile colours that are normally so vivid on Lumia displays are washed out. What's more, it's not that bright, which can make it difficult to see when looking at it from an angle. It's really reflective too, making it particularly bad in daylight. But you can still enjoy content on the screen, and it's still certainly big enough to enjoy videos and your favourite games. And if we move swiftly on to performance and battery life, and this is perhaps where you're going to decide whether you want this phone or not. Because the Snapdragon 200 1.2 GHz quad-core processor in this phone doesn't really deliver. There's no way to say this politely. General speed and performance is terrible. Unless you're happy with just basic functions, you will not like this phone. I've lost count of the number of times I've had an app crash on loading, particularly when you've just downloaded a new app or game. Switching between screens and apps can be sluggish, and because there's no LTE, mobile data performance doesn't go faster than 3G speeds. But the overriding element that affects everything else is touchscreen responsiveness, or lack of it. Because it doesn't always respond properly, you'll find yourself opening web pages when trying to scroll, or opening an app when trying to scroll sideways or up and down through a list. Or when you're taking photos, you might find yourself pressing the screen 3 or 4 times to actually get it to register that you've pressed the screen. It's very unresponsive. But on the plus side, the battery life is pretty good. Despite only having 1905 mAh, the low-res display and underpowered processor, you should easily get an entire day from a single charge. And it runs the latest version of software too. It runs Windows Phone 8.1, which comes with all the usual stuff: Cortana, folders, Action Center, and of course the fantastic keyboard. But overall, I can't help but feel that the performance really isn't anywhere near where it could be. And we get onto the camera, and it's a similar story here. Unlike most Lumias, the camera is not a standout feature. Focus and shutter times are fairly slow, but results are passable. They're not super sharp and don't offer amazing balance, tone or contrast in any lighting situation, but they're still not the worst I've ever seen. It'll do the job if you're not particularly picky over image quality and you just want something that can take a picture if you need it to. And the same can be said of the 5-megapixel front-facing camera. Overall then, it's a cheap phone, and you can tell. It underperforms all of its higher-priced Lumias in every area. If you're looking for a cheap smartphone, I'd still suggest spending a little more money on last year's LTE-equipped Moto G over this one. But if all you want is a smartphone that does the basics and looks good, and don't want to spend a lot of money, the 535 is definitely worth considering. I've been Cam from PhoneDog. I'm at PhoneDog_Cam on Twitter. You can ask me any questions, follow me, or leave comments in the comment section below. And I will see you again soon.